Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of On Point for today, the 27th day of September, 2024. And indeed, it is my pleasure being here once again. My name is Alexis Jeffers, and of course, I come here from time to time. And I say time to time because there have been times when I've been missing from the airwaves because of prior commitments. And indeed, once that happens, then we would have a rerun, or maybe not, as in the case of last week. But yes, I'm here with you once again, and every time I'm not here, it is always a disappointment on my part. But once I'm here, I am here, and I'm happy to be here. So let me shout up all of the folks who are listening at this point in time and viewing, of course, because Von Radio is being carried via the airwaves, 860 AM and 93.7 FM, but also via platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and the likes. And so I want to welcome all who are listening and viewing. Indeed, I want to also welcome persons in the St. James Parish, St. Thomas Parish, St. Paul's, St. John's, St. George. So at least the whole of Nevis who are in tune to Von Radio at this time. I would also want to welcome all brothers and sisters down there in St. Kitts, because of course Von Radio is not just being listened to here, but far and wide, and that is why we spend the time at the start of the program to acknowledge all those islands and countries who are tuned in. So in terms of St. Kitts, yes, we know we do have a following down there, and of course Saba, Statia, St. Bart's, French and Dutch St. Martin, US and British Virgin Islands, of course Puerto Rico, and up into the United States, the East Coast, the Midwest, over into the West Coast of the United States, of course Canada, the whole of Canada. Once you're in that particular space, then you know there are ways to get a hold of Von Radio via YouTube and Facebook. And of course we have citizens who are there for various reasons in Canada, and throughout the whole of Europe as well, and all the way into Asia. So we are being beamed all over the world. So we want to welcome one and all, whether it's morning, whether it's day or night, wherever you are. We wish you well and thank you for tuning in. Of course, this program is one that is just 1 hour, and indeed we don't have a call-in section as yet, or segment, but at some point we probably would. But for the time being, we're just going to go with the flow in terms of having a program where we disseminate information and also, provide updates on certain events and so forth. So at the start of the program, we normally start by acknowledging those persons who are in the bereaved column. And indeed, this afternoon, I want to express my profound sympathies and condolences to the family of Harvey Maynard, who passed away there in Canada a little over a week ago. Of course, he was the uncle of Angela Maynard, and of course the great uncle of Ariel Maynard over there in Barnaby, Potworks area. I want to express my sympathies to them and all of the family members who are affected by the loss of Harvey. Yes, the funeral would be here in Nevis at some point in time. I'm sure the information will be provided accordingly. But we certainly I feel saddened by the passing of Harvey. Many of us would know him from his contributions to our church up there at the St. James Anglican Church, of course, and also he was a member of the Returning National Society as well, and indeed he played his part there, and of course throughout the island of Nevis. Those of you who know him, he had this green pickup that he drove around from time to time, so you would know. I don't know how else to describe it other than to say Harvey was one of the most friendly person you would have encountered from time to time, and he was always pleasant with a smile, and sometimes a smile is all you need to change someone's day from being bad into good. And he always had a positive word to impart as well. Indeed, he would have made his contribution both here and in Canada, and I believe he lived in England at some point as well too. So wherever he would have lived, he would have certainly made his contribution, and it was felt there, and it was certainly felt here on the island of Nevis as well. We'll listen up for when the funeral service will be held for Harvey, and then of course all of us who can go and support will certainly go and support the family in those difficult times, because losing someone is always a final. There's some finality to it here on this earth, as a matter of fact, and as such we'll certainly go out and pay our respects when the time comes. Before I came on the station or on the radio for my programming, I heard an announcement for Mr. Ira Dorr. He passed away a little over a week ago as well too. He lived at one point right there at next to Harlem Shelter, down there at the bottom of Craddock Road, the base we call it. And of course he lived on Shaw's Road for some time as well too. And then in recent times he would have lived over there in the Scarborough Combermere area, that is below the community center going down towards that region. Indeed, we know Ira, he was more or less plying his trade in the tourism sector. At least he had horses where he used to take tourists and locals alike, I'm sure, on horseback riding excursions. He had his stables up there at the Garners, that is above the VOJN primary school going up towards that region, and he did so for many years. As a matter of fact, I can recall that when the Four Seasons opened in 1991 thereabout, he was one of those persons offering that service. And then the taxi operators used to check over there every morning, taking guests up to Ira Dorr. So he had his role to play in the development of that service sector, and he also would have laid the pathway, blazed the trail for those who would have come after as well. He was very articulate when he speak, you know. I guess the interaction with those persons from overseas may have, you know, caused him to hone his skills at you know, speech and speaking to people, in terms of making sure he was articulate and a master in the English language and that kind of thing. So Ira Dorr was one who was a trailblazer in the tourism sector and in the service industry here on the island of Nevis. He's now gone and has departed this life, and I believe, based on what I heard, the funeral service is next Friday, 10 a.m. down there at the St. Paul's Anglican Church, and those of us who can go to lend our support as well should certainly do so, and of course the family will be grateful for that. Before I get off of that, do I remember, well, I recall speaking to a meeting and speaking to his sister down there in Anguilla some time ago. Her name is not coming to mind now, but at least that is how I knew of her and her connection to Ira and all those who have met in the past in terms of his siblings as well. So may both Harvey and Ira, may their soul rest in peace, and of course, like I said, as a community we'll go out and support accordingly. They say in life there's death, and in death, you know, there's some finality, but once there's life, there's always some kind of celebration taking place. When they're celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, some special occasion, there is also going to be celebration in life. And as such, I am certain there are persons out there today who are celebrating their birthday. But before I get to today, let me go back to last week, because I was not here last week. And indeed, a friend of mine up there in Fountain, Henrietta Daniel, was celebrating last week, sorry, what am I saying? Last week, Friday, on the 20th of September. So Henrietta, I didn't get to wish you happy birthday last week on radio. I came to see you, but I'm saying it publicly now, because, you know, some people like their names called and let the whole world know that they're celebrating. So Henrietta, well, the month is not done yet, so continue celebrating until the end of September. How about that? I think that would be a good thing. You go ahead and celebrate. Also, while I'm up in Fountain, let me shout up my good friend there, Ronald Cozier. Ron, as he is affectionately called. He was he celebrated his birthday last week, Friday as well. So Ron, I still need to catch up with you, and I'll catch up with you soon. But of course, every day should be celebrated, but when this special time comes around, celebrate as if it's the last. But we want you to live to see many more birthdays, so it won't be the last. The Lord knows exactly what He has planned for you. All of you who are celebrating, but celebrate, spend the last dollar you have on yourself if you have to. So those are two from last week that I missed out on, and of course I missed out on my good friend there from Brick Hill, Amaral Francine Bishop. She celebrated on Independence Day. So every time Independence Day comes around, everybody should remember Amaral Bishop or Francine Bishop, whichever you want to call her. She celebrated last Thursday, and she had a double celebration because she celebrated her birthday and also our nation's 41st independence celebration as well. So all of you who celebrated last week, I wish you all the best. I hope you had a wonderful time, but also I wish you all the best moving forward as well. But today I want to shout up my good friend up there in Fig Tree Victoria Road area, Odette Walters. She's celebrating today. Odette, what can I say? It's Friday, it's a weekend. You celebrate today, celebrate tomorrow, celebrate Sunday, celebrate until Monday. Monday is the last day of the month, I believe. So you celebrate for the rest of the month as well, and have yourself a wonderful birthday celebration. And as I've said before, celebrate it as if it's the last, but we're praying that you'll live to see many more birthdays. So those of you who are celebrating, once again, go ahead and have a wonderful time. In terms of the weather, we've had some good weather in the last couple of days. Good, when I say good, I mean we've had some rain. We have some thunder and lightning and the likes, but at least the farmers may be happy with some rain. All of us who have a backyard garden or something of that sort will be happy with the rain. But prior to that, we would have had some hot, very hot and steamy weather. And what I want to encourage our people to do is to make sure you stay hydrated, take some water with you wherever you're going, and make sure you continue to drink your water to stay hydrated to counter some of these challenges and difficulties, because it has been hot. But we had some relief over the last day or two, and indeed it's getting hot again out there. Also, we have some activity around us in terms of weather systems, tropical systems. I don't think any are heading to us as we speak. We had some systems that passed north of us. We had one that developed in the Gulf and went up towards the United States into Florida. And I want to say that we have to continue to be ever mindful of some of these challenges, because there in Florida, from what I would have read, is that in a short space of time, about 22 persons would have lost their lives, meaning that is just a preliminary number. I don't know what the final numbers will be like, but at least they had flooding, they had high winds, they had storm surge, they had all kinds of things that came through there overnight and into this morning with that hurricane called Helene. And indeed, it started in the Gulf, of course, as a tropical system, went from a tropical system to a tropical storm, and then quickly ramped up to a category 4. They were anticipating that it would make landfall as a category 3, but of course when it made landfall it would have been somewhere about a category 4. And that is just how uncertain some of these storms are. That is why when we hear some of the weather bulletin being published here on Von Radio and any other media house or platform or whatever the case might be, it behooves us to pay attention and take them seriously, because these storms can ramp up from a tropical storm category 1, category 2 to a category 5 in the space of some hours. And as such, it would catch some of us off guard if we are not being as as mindful. I'm forgetting one of the words that I want to use, but anyway, if we're not being mindful and paying attention, it can catch us off guard. But we have to be responsible at this point of time in the year, because we're just about at the peak of the season. We still have months to go to the 30th of November, but between now and then we want to stay focused and be ever mindful as to what is happening around us. Yeah, so It's unfortunate what has happened there up in the United States in terms of the challenges that persons now have in rebuilding or recovering, rebuilding, and getting their life back in order again. But we certainly wish them well, and indeed we continue to pray that these storms continue to avoid us. We prefer them to go into open ocean, open waters, but if they make landfall, we pray for the best and pray that it will not be as dangerous or as deadly as some has proven to be in recent times. That being said, continue to be vigilant, continue to be mindful, and continue to pay attention. And if there are any other preparations to be made, continue to prepare. These months of these hurricane months, or months of the hurricane season, can throw us any conditions that we certainly do not want to deal with from time to time. So that's my bit on that, but continue to be ever mindful and ever vigilant. Okay, let's move on to something else. From time to time, I would come here at the end of each month and give an update as to what is happening over at the Uwale Water Taxi Facility. Some seem to be not too happy when I come and say these things, but of course, I am not dissuaded in any way, because of course that Uwale Water Taxi Facility is one of the investments that the Concerned Citizens Movement would have made here on the island of Nevis. And of course the vision was there because we understood what it meant to our people, we understood what it meant to the island of Nevis, we understand what it means to the island of St. Kitts and the entire federation on a whole. And of course we are happy that the investment was made, because we have seen the transformation of travel between the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course we have seen the returns in terms of the financial returns to all who are involved. But I want to just give an idea as to what the numbers are like, or were like, for the month of August. Every time we come, we give the data for the previous month, and so we continue to make or continue to do the additions as we go along. So up until the end of July, we recall that in terms of the passenger movement, we had over 170,653 passengers who would have passed through the Uwale Water Taxi Facility. So that's 170,653 passengers would have passed through that facility. For the month of August alone, we had 25,129 persons, or passengers, sorry, who would have passed through that facility. 25,129 passengers. So you add that to what we have been tallying thus far. We have this running tally because we have a target as well, you know. We are saying that we should see in excess of 250,000 passengers passing through that facility by the end of the year. The pace we're on tells me we'll surpass that even before December. But anyway, you add both numbers together, that is what we've been tallying up to the end of July plus August. We are now up to 195,782 passengers. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And no one should start to calculate how much money is being made, you know, because if you multiply that by $30 on average, you'll say, well, enough money is being made over there, over $5 million you'll end up with. I don't say that is made or that has been made, but I am telling you, if for example you multiply that by $30, you're looking at quite a bit of money. Yeah, so both operators are making money, they can't deny that. NASPA is making some money, can't deny that. Restaurant and bars here on the island of Nevis are making money because people come over from time to time just to have a dinner, just to have a drink, just to socialize. Rental companies are making money, meaning car rentals. Taxi operators, how could I forget them? Because they're the ones who are right there on the spot when the passengers come and they're looking for transport to go to Charlestown or around the island of Nevis. And of course, those who intend to stay or determine that they'll stay over on the island of Nevis for a night or two, or guest houses make money. And of course, if they stay overnight, they may want to prepare some food or something. If they don't want to eat out, they go to our supermarkets, buy even a bottle of water to have in their place. So it therefore means that every sector of the economy, all areas are being impacted, because when all of these monies are spent, then it therefore means the business operators have to pay their taxes to government, and NASPA collects, and NASPA have to pay their workers and employees, and then they still have to pay social security contributions. So it is a rippling effect throughout the entire economy. It is a big business over there at the Uwale water taxi facility, and I can talk about it for a whole hour, and then of course some people would get angry because it seems as though they're upset that this facility is providing the needs, or providing to the needs of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and making travel much easier, making providing income for all who are connected to that facility. And so when I say that is a huge addition to the economy here on the island of Nevis, and by extension the economy in St. Kitts, because there are a number of workers who go across the Park Hyatt. There was some talk in the past about, oh, you're sending people to St. Kitts to work. Of course we are sending them over because we are in closer proximity to Park Hyatt than Diet Bay and Old Road and those places down in the northwest and the north of St. Kitts. So how long would it take someone to come from Diet Bay to Park Hyatt? They have to come to Bastille. They have to cater a ride from Bastille all the way over to the peninsula. By the time someone leaves, let's say Newcastle, and get on the boat and go to Park Hyatt, they're ready to do their shift long before somebody from down in Diet Bay gets there. So we are in a strategic place to benefit from an institution such as Park Hyatt, and that is where most of our people would have gone in recent times, who have those skills and have those experiences in the hotel sector and the service industry. They've gone over there to work, and they've gone to make money that they're making to provide for the needs of their family, their children, send them to school, save some money for a rainy day, buy new vehicles, pay for their mortgage, and all of those type of things. So when it's all said and done, that infrastructure was put in place for multiple reasons, and it is fulfilling all of those reasons that were thought about initially when we built that facility. And so the Uwale Water Taxi facility, I want to commend all who are working there for their efforts on a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly basis, and on an annual basis to make sure that facility continue to provide for the needs of all, and that safety and security continue to be the watchword over there. So Oral Brandon is general manager, and all those who manage that facility over there, I want to commend you for the effort. Continue to offer service at the highest possible level. Treat all the customers who come through there alike, in terms of ensuring that you're not being partial in any way, or whatever the word is, you're being impartial in terms of making sure that all of the persons who come through there get similar service. And then persons who go through should reciprocate as well, because we're all working together to ensure that that facility continue to perform well. Okay, so I'm going to come off that for now. I spent a long time on it, but I love it. I love that Uwale Water Taxi facility, because it was meant to be built elsewhere. Not the Uwale Water Taxi facility, but a water taxi facility was contemplated for down there at the bottom of a cotton ground, where one person would have been the sole operator of all of the boats, operating the facility or managing the facility and operating all the boats that goes out of there. So one person would have been benefiting. I am so glad that the government saw the need that everybody, whosoever will, may come and bring your boat. Go and buy a boat and come, and make sure you adhere to the safety standards and the rules and the regulations that NASPA have in place, because NASPA controls the water from all the way over here at Long Point, all the way up there to Long Haul Bay. So if NASPA have rules, all you have to do is to abide by the rules and make sure that you are conforming to those rules and the safety requirements, so that we can save the lives of our people. So whoever is angry about that facility, well, so be it. But I want to say that we have made it possible for everybody who want to get involved, okay? So we'll leave that. You see me in my red shirt here today. I'm not Labour. I haven't turned Labour, but this is the color of the national flag that I understand should be worn today. Throughout the independence celebration, our 41st anniversary of independence, we were told that we'll wear a different color of the national flag on a different Friday. So we've gone through green, we've gone through black, we've gone through yellow, we've gone through those colors. So today is red. So I have this lovely shirt on, if you can see me on the camera. Yeah, and I want to commend what's her name, Cavell Mills. I forgot her business name. But anyway, I bought this shirt from her some time ago, and it is such a lovely color with some lovely trimmings. If you can see, yeah, see there? Okay, good. Those of you who are listening by radio, you wouldn't see, but if you're looking at this program via YouTube, you'll see this lovely shirt. So this is why I'm wearing this lovely shirt today. And I said that because I wanted to get to something I wanted to get to last week. Should have touched on last week, which I was not here, so I am now touching on it this week. Because on the 19th of September, we had our independence ceremonial parade up there at the El Comido Willett Park, formerly known as the Grove Park. And we had that up there on the 19th, and it was a celebration, yes, but it was also an award ceremony where 11 persons were recognized for their contribution to the development of the island of Nevis. And indeed, I wanted to recognize them this afternoon because every single one of them in their various discipline would have certainly contributed to the overall development of the island of Nevis, whether it was in the area or it is in the area of agriculture, education, entertainment, entrepreneurship, health, hospitality and community service, small business, sports, or tourism. Those were the 11 areas in which these persons who I'm going to speak about would have made their contribution. So in the area of agriculture, we have Mrs. Leonora Brown. She's from the Prospect area, and of course she's into livestock and the likes, and she's been doing that for many years. And indeed, we understand the importance of our livestock to the overall security, food security here on the island of Nevis. So she is indeed playing her part in that regard. In the area of education, we had still Miss Barbara Hendrickson. She was in recent past the head teacher of the Joycelyn Liebert Primary School, but of course she would have had at least 40 years of experience in the education sector, and indeed she would have played her part in grooming and also shaping the minds of our young boys and young girls who would have, some of them would have passed through her hands and have gone on to greater things as well. I can say the same thing of Mrs. Evelina. Evelina. I hope I'm getting it right. When she meets me, she's going to chastise me for that, you know. Evelina Claxton. Evelina Claxton. I think I have it correct. Yes. Evelina Claxton. She was a teacher, of course. Yes, she was an educator. And indeed, she had her exploits in education and also in community service as well. So she would have done her tour of duty in education for over 40 years, or just about 40 years. And over those 40 years, anyone who would have passed through her hands, whether at the age of 5, at the age of 10, you're now a grown an adult and contributing as well to the development of the island of Nevis. So Mrs. Claxton would have done her part to shape you and mold you as well. And in the area of entertainment, we had Mr. John Abbott. He is one who is called the Rhythm King, and you know, he has been in entertainment, meaning a DJ and other things in the entertainment world for a long time, for almost 30 plus years. And indeed, he considered himself to have been the one who introduced CDs to music in Nevis, you know, those compact discs. He was the one who introduced that, he claims. So he has been around long enough to make that claim, and of course you can still see him around. He has his own system. And one of the things that Zimba said in the profile or the write-up that they would have had is that he stay away from profanity when it comes to the DJing, meaning when he goes to a public place and he's providing that type of entertainment, you'll never hear any profanity coming from his mouth. Now, there are some DJs now, they seem to think that all of the bad word or profanity is needed to make their performance lively and make it interesting. I don't think so. People come to entertainment to hear good music. People come to entertainment to have a drink, and if they carry their significant other, to have a nice dance and enjoy themselves. But Zimba is saying, not him. I am not going there with any profanity. I'm not going to put that, because there are different persons who would come to these events. And of course, we want to make sure it is clean and wholesome when it's all said and done. And I just spoke about the Wally Water Taxi facility. One of the persons who have made that facility what it is today in terms of ensuring that the service is offered, and also it is offered at a level that is consistent with what we would require here on the island of Nevis, is Mr. Vincent Plug-Eye Perkins. He owns Islander Water Sports, and he was awarded there for his efforts in entrepreneurship. I made a post on Facebook, and I said he's a diminutive person. He's diminutive in stature, but he's a giant of a businessman, because he have a fleet of what, just about 12 boats, and he employ in excess of 40 persons, you know, and he now has opened a restaurant right on next to the Wally Water Taxi facility called On the Rocks. And you pass there from time to time, and it is a buzz. So that is also a hit. So he offers services to the Four Seasons Resort. Of course, you know, Four Seasons doesn't have any boats at this point in time, so he's the one who offers that service. He also does jet ski services, rentals, and also scuba diving and other things that he offers. But he's a good businessman, one who is... Sometimes I want to know how he gets things done, because he walks around with just a phone and no pads and no books in his hand. So, you know, he must have a good head on his body. So, Plug-Eye, I wish you well. I wish your business every success. And all who continue to ply their trade out there, I wish you well also. In the field of health, we have Mrs. Joya Walters. And she has been in various things, including being a nurse for up to 25 years or thereabout. She has also said that, let me pull up her profile and her write-up here, because that is important. She was not just a nurse, but also she said throughout her nursing career, she enjoyed working with the mental health unit, especially assessing and working with the consultant psychiatrists on mental health issues such as anxiety, bipolar disorder, depression, or dementia. She is truly happy that clients now see the importance of prescribed medication by a psychiatrist, and has been very successful with the holistic approach of listening and educating the clients. I read that because, you know, mental health is something that most times is overlooked, and sometimes we see conditions being displayed or certain mannerisms being displayed by persons, when in truth and in fact, if you were to dig deeper and do an assessment, there may be something wrong that needs addressing. And that is why I applaud Mrs. Joya Walters for her efforts. Sometimes persons shy away from persons with these challenges, but indeed this is someone who is expressing some joy and some pleasure in working with those persons who are experiencing such challenges. So Joya, you have made your mark, and we appreciate and thank you for your effort as well. And the next person who I want to touch on is Miss Cheryl Wilkerson in the area of hospitality, and that is Cheryl Wilkerson over there at the Westbury area. You know, she would have had numerous years, number of years in the hospitality industry. At least she claimed that she would have gotten into that area from the tender age of 19, and she spent just about 29 to 30 years in that area. And she's pleased that she would have offered outstanding service in that sector to everyone who she would have interacted with, and every place that she would have worked. And we want to thank you for your service in that sector, because of course many tourists who would have come, Cheryl, would have interacted with you indirectly or directly. And when I say indirectly, you would have prepped those rooms for them when they come, and indeed I'm sure they would have left with glowing records and glowing words in terms of what they would have met when they come. So we want to thank you, Cheryl. And in terms of in the area of hospitality and community service, Mrs. Veronica Pamela Brooks, she's from the Coal Hill area, She spent what, just about 20 years at the Montpellier Hotel, and of course she would have contributed to community development and building as well, and we want to thank you for your service, Pam. I also want to mention in the area of small business, Miss Dolores Body up there in Chicken Stone, and Dolores is like a live wire. Even at her age, at this point in time, she's always a buzz and bubbly and happy and everything, and maybe that is what keeps her looking young. But she has contributed in the area of small business. You know, on a Friday afternoon you can pass there and there are persons there picking up their barbecue chicken, barbecue ribs, grilled fish and all the likes, and of course she caters to the persons in the area in terms of she have a small bar there as well. And indeed she certainly have done her best to contribute in that community there of Chickenstone and service to those who come from various parts of the island and come to Chickenstone to patronize her business, and I wish you well, Dolores. Finally, not finally, this is not final, there's one other, but in the area of sports we have Mr. Wendell Micey Wallace. He was acknowledged and awarded for his contribution in the sporting arena. Of course, Micey would have played for the Nevis football team back in the 90s, and he has played cricket at the masters level, first and second division cricket here on the island of Nevis. He's an active member of the Nevis Cricket Association. But most importantly, Micey would have contributed or continue to contribute to grassroots cricket here on the island of Nevis. He just opened his own academy, which is called the Wendell Austin Wallace Cricket Academy over there at the VOGN sporting facility, and of course he have just about 40 young boys and girls who are part of that academy. And indeed we want to applaud Micey, because we have to capture all young boys and indeed young girls at that particular age of 13 or younger, so that we can start honing those skills from then to see who are interested and who may not be. But at that point in time you get a majority of them who might be interested, and then his job then is to ensure that they have the skills and the temperament to play the sport of cricket moving forward. We want to ensure that we can build from there, build from that foundation and go further and beyond to the under 19 and over 19, those larger or more senior teams, so that we can put our cricketers into the Leeward Islands youth team, Leeward Islands senior team, West Indies, well, under 19, whatever it is, and even up to the senior West Indies team. We are seeking to get someone there again shortly, and so if it takes a couple of years, we have to continue to press on in that regard, and Micey is playing his part in that regard, and I want to commend him. He took a trip recently with some of these youngsters down to Anguilla and made a good name for themselves down there, and indeed he have plans afoot to have multiple teams over there at the VOGN Sporting Complex to have competition among teams from St. Kitts, Anguilla, Antigua, and of course Nevis in the not too distant future. So that is a good thing to look forward to, and I want to wish Micey well. Micey, you have our support, and I want to thank the NIA for acknowledging you for your effort and for your sterling contribution thus far. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Curvis Scarborough. Curvis Scarborough, he's a taxi operator, and of course he had various areas in which he would have served, whether as a primary school teacher, high school teacher, as a banker, because he was at the National Bank at one point, and then he would have gone on to work at the Four Seasons Resort, and then because of the skills that he would have honed and developed there, he would have taken that into the area of taxi service, and he has now grown into an independent taxi operator and making a contribution in that regard. And indeed we want to wish you well, Curvis. We want to wish your business well, and I want to thank once again the Nevis Island administration for acknowledging the contribution of all of these persons, 11 of them, in all of the various discipline sectors that they have contributed. And I spend some time on that, because when our people do well, we have to lift them up and praise them for the work that they have done, and say at this point in time, not everyone can be awarded at the same time. Next year a new set of persons will be identified and given just reward. So we want us all to continue to press on in terms of pushing this island forward. We are a strong and resilient people. And no matter what anybody say about us, we know we have it within us to do well, and we'll continue to do so with the help of God and with the sustenance and all of the strength that we have. So I want to commend them once again as I move on to another area that I want to touch on quickly, because of course, as I just said, before I do, I want to put in a plug for my friends there in Brick Hill, Link Up group that is having this Pork and Beer Festival on the 23rd of November. Saturday the 23rd of November, up there at the Whitehall school ground, the old Whitehall school ground, right there on the hard court. They started this thing about 4 years ago. Pork and Beer Festival, and believe me, it is catching on. Last year they had a bumper crowd, and they're anticipating that this year would be equally as big and even better. They'll have their drinks, they'll have their pork, they'll have other dishes and other things being sold, but of course pork and beer are the main attraction, or the main things being served that will be served up there, and they want the whole of Nevis and the whole of St. Kitts to come out and celebrate with them. So indeed, the 23rd of November 2024, they already confirmed Itebulus, that's the man who talk about pork chop and everything, not talk but sing about pork chop and everything. And then you have DJ Wet Dot is already confirmed, and of course they'll confirm maybe another band or two before we get to November. So I want to put that there, so at least when this is rebroadcast, someone will hear it who didn't hear it from the onset, and keep on I'll keep that in your mind as you go along. Yeah, so I did say that we celebrated our 41st independence on the 19th of September, but of course it is a celebration that has lasted for the whole of September up to this point in time, and will last until there are a few activities left as well. And of course this is a point in time where I'm sure that we are reflecting on independence and wondering where we are and what have we achieved and where have we come from, where we are, where we are headed to as a country after 41 years of independence. Some may say that we have had a tumultuous time. Some may say we have had a good time, or reasonably good time. But of course, in everything, there's the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And of course, we as a nation have experienced some good, we have experienced some bad, and we have had some indifferent times. Of course, we've had some improvement in our infrastructure, whether it's in our water, electricity, in healthcare, in education, agriculture, social development, and the establishment of our social safety nets and so forth. And of course, part of the thing that we can certainly acknowledge is that the United Nations has ranked us high among those developing countries in terms of our average annual income, which is somewhere around $21,380 US, if I were to be precise about it. It may have grown by now, but that has been good and bad in a sense, to the extent that we now don't qualify for certain grant funds that are available out there because they say we are too rich. I don't know where they get that from, but we're a struggling country. We're still what we consider to be a developing state, and so we still have to understand that there are agencies and entities out there that look at us and grade us accordingly. Outside of that, though, I want to say some of the challenges we've had is that we've had challenges with our crime situation. As far as I'm concerned, when we think about where we were in 1993, thereabout, even before that, up to 1993, we were seen as the freest nation on earth. And when you say the freest, our crime rate at that point was almost nil. And then we had an explosion in our criminality and crime rate here on the island of Nevis and on the island of St. Kitts, or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. This is something that is troubling. It is something that we feel has to be looked at day after day. We cannot relax when it comes to the crime situation here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, because of course, as we develop, there are certain elements that creep into our society which we have to continue to put infrastructure and put all policies and programs in place to mitigate against some of these challenges that we have with our crime and criminality. Our young people must understand that crime is not the way or the answer to anything. Because when it's all said and done, I don't know what benefit anyone get out of any criminal activity whatsoever. A lot of us who would have progressed in life have stayed away from crime and criminality, and here we are today. Yes, all of us have had challenges all in our life with someone doing us or committing something against us. And we have walked away and have gone on as a result and stay clear of any mischief and any difficulties. And as such, we have been able to survive. But of course, there are some who see it differently, and we want to say to those who see it differently that what you're doing is of no value to you or to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Every time the news is listened to and you hear there's a murder in St. Kitts and Nevis, it is a black eye for this federation. Every time someone is murdered in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, it is an added number to our crime statistic. It is not a beneficial statistic to us in any way. Those statistics work against us rather than for us. And as such, even if you're thinking about doing something, even if you get into your vehicle and say, I'm going down the road to do something, which is adverse to the country, you have to tell yourself along the way, how can I pull myself back? The rage and the anger certainly will not pay off for you or for anyone else. And so some of the things that we're seeing happening, I mean, I sometimes can't put a reason or rationale behind these things, because I really don't see where it enhances in any way. It just destroy lives, destroy families, destroy a federation. And so I want us all to think differently as we go along in this lifetime, because of course living is what we would want to do. Just live life. It's difficult as it is, but even though it is difficult, there are some good things about life that you'll want to continue living. There are good things about life in spite of the difficulties that you'll want to hold on to. And I want us all to start thinking positively about life. But as we celebrate, continue to celebrate until the end of this year, or 41st anniversary, I want us all to understand that over the years, this country has been through hurricanes, financial crisis, COVID-19, criminal activities that are impacting us. We've had some difficulties with our CBI program. We've had all of these challenges. And we must be able to find a way, when it's all said and done, to ensure that all of these challenges that we have faced, and all of the leaders that we have had over the years, and all of the parties that we have had in and out of government, we must understand that, these things about our country, as bad as they are, it is worse elsewhere, yes, but we have to continue to work to improve them, these situations. So if there are difficulties in the CBI program, there are plans afoot to improve and to address some of those challenges. When it comes to the COVID-19 situation which we experienced, we had no say in that. We had no, it was not created by us, but of course we had to find a way to get through that. Same thing with the financial meltdown in the late 2000s, there about 2008, 2009, we were able to overcome because we had to do what was necessary to address that. We had challenges ahead of us. Global warming and all of these climatic conditions that we have to face. We have to come up with programs and plans to mitigate against some of these challenges. But I want to say before I go, because I see a few minutes left on the program, over the 41 years we've had 4 prime ministers. We had Prime Minister Simmons. He was our first prime minister. We had Prime Minister Douglas. He was the second. We had the third prime minister in Dr. Harris. Now we have Dr. Drew. 41 years we have not heard about a prime minister from Nevis. So we are a federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but of course we have never had a prime minister from Nevis. Now that is something that we have to have a debate and a discussion on. Why haven't there been any consideration, and why haven't there been a prime minister from Nevis at this point in time? Some may say the opportunity was there before. Well, That's up for an argument. Let's have a discussion about that. But of course, the way it is structured, of course, with 3 seats from Nevis and 8 from St. Kitts, the challenges would always be there, whether it is a party from St. Kitts that form a government in its entirety without any coalition or anything like that. But of course, we've had coalitions, we've had persons from Nevis or from various parties on Nevis in government on St. Kitts. But of course, to date, we have not had any prime minister from Nevis. And that is something that we have to look at and wonder if this federation would be any better. And some of the difficulties that we face at this point in time, whether it would have been any better if we had a prime minister from the island of Nevis. And I say that because many of us may have our difficulties with a prime minister from Nevis, but a prime minister came out of Tobago and ran the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, I don't know what the records was then, but of course you had, I think it was A.N.R. Robinson, if my recollection is right, who was the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, but he came out of Tobago. So maybe it's time for us to start thinking about, from the St. Kitts end and from the Nevis end, how can we get a Prime Minister from Nevis to run the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and let's see if it will be any better than it is now. Yeah, that is just for a discussion, and I put that out there. Of course, over the last 41 years since independence, we've had a number of premiers as well. Dr. Daniel, we've had Premier Amory, Premier Parry, Premier Amory twice, of course, and of course at this point in time we have Premier Brantley. And over those years we've had, you know, some good times, some bad times, some indifferent times as well too, because of course we've had to go through all of the experiences that I mentioned before, whether it was hurricane, the financial meltdown, and all those circumstances we've had to undergo over those period of time. But of course there have been some success and there have been some failures, and indeed we can have discussions about all those. Yeah. And when I say success and failures, we've had failures not as leaders, but in terms of us as a people, where we have gone wrong in many ways. We spend more time criticizing than to help to build up. And that is where we have gone wrong in many ways. And some of the criticisms that I'm hearing these days cannot lead us to the promised land in any way or make this island better. Because I will say to you, it is always better to have a solution to a problem than to be criticizing every day. You say the same thing over and over again, criticizing, and yet still you don't have a solution to the problem. And that's where the failure is. And we have failed our island in that way. And I will always say, there was a saying some time ago when I was much younger, I believe it was some years ago. My grandmother must have told me it at some point in the time. It doesn't take much brain to complain. It doesn't take much brain to complain. Anybody can complain, and anybody can criticize, and anybody can find fault in whatever it is. But I will say to you that one of the things I applaud the Honourable Mark Brantley and his team is not to get caught up in all of the criticisms, yeah? Because a lot of criticisms are out there, but I will say to you that during the period of 2006 and 2013 is the most pain, pressure and poverty that was brought on the island of Nevis under the NRP. And as such, we saw a change of circumstances somewhere between 2013 and 2015 and beyond. And all of the criticisms you're hearing, whether it's in water, whether it's in electricity, whether in whatever, we have gone through that. Through 2006, with those difficult and tumultuous times, we've had to undo all of those circumstances and make things better, especially in the water, especially in electricity, especially in our infrastructure. We have seen a marked improvement in those areas under the CCM, because the NRP wouldn't tell you that they would have, the first time in the history of the island of Nevis, they would have taken up our water and handed it to a company that was here. A company bid, went into a 10-year contract. And when we came out of that contract, we would have spent over $30 million on our water that is a resource on the earth here. All that company did was to extract it, pump it into tanks owned by the NIA, and then the NIA had to distribute that. pay the cost of distribution. But we as a people had to pay the electricity for that company, for those pumps, and we had to turn around and buy the same water. And when it was all said and done, that contract yielded well over $30 million that the people of Nevis had to fork out. And never before in the history. And that is why I said we had our failures. And that is why I say we had our difficult times, because we are now engaging a company from Trinidad, and we have asked them to develop some wells. And in developing those wells, when they're done, thank you, you get your money and you go. And then we'll go ahead further and make sure that those wells are further developed to get that water into our system. Never before in the history of Nevis has that ever been done before, until the NRP came into government, when they saw the need to take up our water and hand it over to a company, and then we had to turn around and buy it back from that company. We have the men and women in our services here to take care of that. Now, quickly before I go, I'm going to touch on some of these next week. I'm going to leave them because, you see, we've been talking about where we have come from and where we are, and some of the difficulties and challenges that we have been having. I would want to say to you that there's a lot of talk about small business right now. Yes, small businesses are encountering challenges. Yes, there have been difficulties because what? All of the models and systems and environment has changed over the years. The mom and pop store in the villages that we live in, most times persons don't necessarily patronize them as they used to, because everybody now have transportation. Everybody drive to town, drive up to Rams, drive up to Value Mart, drive up to all of these supermarkets and patronize those businesses, because it's accessibility and also convenience. And of course, there are other areas where people are now changing the mode of doing things. And as such, many of these small businesses also have to change up the game as well too. And I'm being blunt this afternoon, because we cannot continue to criticize every single day and complain and make noise when there are ways in which we can change. For example, just by way of looking at it from a larger perspective, companies such as Walmart, Target, JCPenney, all those large, Sears maybe is not in business now, but all those larger businesses out there in the US, for example, brick and mortar, when they realized they're losing out on business to online services, you know what they did? They started offering online purchases where you can now come to the store and pick up your goods and go. You purchase online and then you come pick up and go, instead of coming and walking through all of the aisles. Yeah, that is one of the things they would have done to save their business and to go with the flow and the times that we're in. By the same token, a lot of persons are now ordering stuff online right here in Nevis. Down there at the customs area is busy every day. People are walking out with packages. They go to the place at the back of where the old Rockery Nook, whatever it is, Republic Bank in the back there. I see people walking out with packages. I don't know who is behind there because I don't order through them. But there are other places on Nevis where you go and you pick up your package and go. FedEx and DHL and whomever. People are purchasing because people have now those tools in their hands to do these purchases online. And so a lot of things have changed. And I'm not going to go into major details this afternoon because time is running out. But we have to understand the times that we're in, and we have to go and tell ourselves, if we expected persons to come to our business place, you now have to go and find them where they are. For example, there are lots of construction sites here on the island of Nevis. You can pick up your goods, and of course, if you have a vehicle, you go out and you ply your trade out there the same way. Someone is not going to leave Cotton Ground and come to Brick Hill to buy stuff. Someone is not going to leave Brick Hill and go to Cotton Ground to buy stuff where they're working in Brick Hill, but they're not going to come to Cotton Ground. They're working in Cotton Ground, they're not going to go to Brick Hill. What you're going to do is, if you're in Fountain, for example, and you have goods, chicken and sandwich and what, you put them in your vehicle and you go to find the construction site. Same thing on the other side of the island, where there are hundreds of sites on the island. That is just one example. But there are other ways you have to think outside the box. Do not wait for the government to come and tell you everything to do and what to do, because the government can't do it all. But you know that you can put your brain to work, put your brain power to work and get out there and get the things done. Listen, Opportunities abound here on the island of Nevis. And we are going to talk about some more next week. But opportunities abound. There are challenges in some areas. There are opportunities in manufacturing as well, which we'll talk about next week. But I'll say to you, do not be persuaded by those who are out there not working, don't want to work, can't find work, refuse to work, and they're telling you that so many things are wrong with the island of Nevis. When you're hustling, doing your thing, you have one job, two jobs, because you're making ends meet by going out there and finding the work that is available to you. Go out and press on and make your money. Do not be dissuaded by anyone. Things are challenging, yes. The whole world, as I always said to my colleagues, easy work done. Easy life is over and done with. We have to go out there and understand that we have to pull up our belts, pull up our bootstraps, get ourselves up and get out and go and do the work that is out there to do. And if there are challenges, yes, try and find your way to find a way around these things, because the government have been trying and they've offered a lot of incentives in many regards. But there are persons out there who are just negative about everything. Let them continue to be negative, but you keep a positive mind and go out and work. Work is essential for you to get to where you want to get to. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I'm over time now. I'm almost over time. I'm looking for the engineer, but we normally have 1 hour, and I don't have any monies for any overtime on this show. So I am wrapping up now to say to you that we've come to the end of another show here on Point for today, the 27th day of September. Indeed, it was my pleasure being here. And as I always say before I go, if you go to church on a Saturday, go and serve your God. If you go to church on a Sunday, go and do likewise. Have yourself a wonderful weekend. May God continue to bless the island of Nevis. May God continue to bless us all, protect us, and let us go on out and do what we must do to keep this island moving on. Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
You're listening to Vaughn Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis. With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern